It is a spectrum. And because it is a spectrum, two kids with autism can present in two totally different ways. So you want to make sure your son is in the right placement. Two other points, and then I'll be quiet to see if you have a follow-up question. One point is this: do not put your sons on medication. They often push medication for autistic kids for behavioral problems. I would never put any of my kids on autism, but especially not, on medication, but especially not my autistic children, because that medication can further impair their disability, because autism is neurological, and these drugs that they give our children for hyperactivity, so forth and so on, mood disorders, they give a lot of mood stabilizing drugs to the autistic kids. That's only going to further exacerbate the challenges that they already have. So I would not put them on meds. Autism doesn't have a cure. So what are they taking medications for? So make sure you resist the meds. Number two, if your child is not intellectually impaired, see, remember, autism is a disability in communication. It is a disability in communication, verbal and nonverbal. It is not a learning disability per se. So your child can have autism, impairment in social communication or verbal communication, but can still learn in the regular classroom. If your son can still learn in the regular classroom, he should not have an IEP. He should not be in the autistic support class. Remember, you only qualify for special ed if the disability affects learning. The disability must affect learning. I don't care if you got ADHD. I don't care if you got autism. I don't care if you're emotionally disturbed. It don't matter what the disability is. If you can learn in a regular classroom, it is illegal for you to be in a special ed class. So for your 9-year-old, you might say, well, you know what, Doc? He can learn in a regular class, but he is so out of place, so socially awkward, so anxious, so uncomfortable that it affects his ability to focus, and therefore we got to pull him out and put him in a special class. I can probably buy that. But the reason I'm saying probably is because have we tried a one-to-one aid in the regular class for your autistic son? Because maybe with a one-to-one aid in the regular class, he might be able to focus, he might be more comfortable, and he might be able to receive his education with a one-to-one aid in the regular class. And if that's the case, he doesn't need an IEP, he needs a 504 plan. And a 504 plan is a plan for accommodations, not learning modifications. The IEP is a learning modification plan. You change the instruction. You design the instruction for the disabled child. Well, with the 504 plan, you still have to have a disability, but it doesn't have to be a special ed disability. So an autistic kid can get a 504 plan just for the accommodations, because if you don't have any learning problems, you have no business with an IEP. If you don't have any learning problems, you don't have any business with an IEP. You should have a 504 so you can get the accommodations, extra time to take your tests, one-to-one aid, behavior plan, school counselor, although I don't recommend that. So one thing that you and your wife need to consider is whether your son should be moved over from the IEP plan to the 504 plan. Now, the school may not like it because schools don't get paid for 504 plans, because 504 plans are civil rights law, and the government doesn't pay you to not discriminate against people. You see, IEP is educational law, and that is for kids with learning problems. 504 is for kids with disabilities who need accommodations and support, but who can learn in the regular class. So you might want to consider whether a 504 is better for your son than an IEP. What's your follow-up question? Ah, you still there, my brother? Yes, sir.
Yes.
Did you have a follow-up?
I was listening on as well.
No problem. How you doing, sister?
Good. You gave us some really, really good information, things that I didn't know on this new journey of autism. So the 9-year-old has you explained the 504 and IEP part very well, and I thought I didn't know that because he is my stepson. So for the 504, I didn't know that that it has nothing to do with learning, because our 4-year-old has he's capable of learning. He's just hyper, and he does have a small communication delay. So I will be looking into that part as early as today when we get off this phone call.
And remember, you have to keep in mind that public schools they're basically operating a special education slave trade when it comes to black boys. And what I mean by that, they're always looking for parents who are going to be easygoing with their agenda to special educate your child for money. Remember, the special ed kids get twice the money that the regular children get. And so when they see black boys, it's just like the slave trade 400 years ago. It's just now the special ed slave trade. Every black boy they see, they start salivating that maybe we can also get him in special ed for some money. Remember, special ed is guaranteed money. It's guaranteed. Once the child gets an IEP, the school gets paid. And in addition to that, so the school wants the money. The teacher wants the child out the classroom. So if you got a child, with a little bit of behavior problem, the first thing these white teachers do, the first thing they do is try to manipulate the parent into getting them evaluated for special ed to get them out the classroom. And this is why so many black boys end up in special ed, because you don't have to go to special ed because you have an IEP. Let me take that back. You don't have to go into a special ed classroom because you have an IEP. Although the IEP is special ed, the IEP can be implemented in the regular classroom. So you can have a situation where the child has a disability, has an IEP, which means the instruction is being modified, but that instruction can be modified in the regular classroom. So let's say the child got a reading disability, which in my opinion don't even exist because our kids can learn how to read. They just don't want to, and we're not making them. But let's just say child has a reading disability. He doesn't have to go to the learning support class for reading support. He can stay in the regular class, and during the language arts portion of instruction, the special ed teacher comes into the regular classroom, sits down with him while the regular teacher is teaching the entire regular class, and the special ed teacher is working with the child while the regular teacher is working with the whole class.
Is this happening all over the country? Is this supposed to happen all over the country, or is this because you see different? I'm assuming different things in different states. The 9-year-old was in Florida for a while, and they had even a longer date for them in terms of my 4-year-old now. They did put him on an IEP. He does not have a learning disability at all. But I didn't know that I was following the same kind of thing that happened when they diagnosed the 9-year-old. So I'm going to re-engage on that. But they have it seems like they do different things here than they do in Florida.
Well, here's the thing. Special education is a federal law. And so every state must obey the federal requirements and the federal law. Now, beyond what the feds demand, each state has the right to modify their special ed program in their state dependent upon how they want to operate special ed. In other words, they can add to the federal law. They cannot subtract. Let me give you an example. Federal law says if once a parent makes a request for an evaluation and signs permission, the child must be evaluated within 60 calendar days. 60 calendar days. So if you sign permission today, October the 11th, by December the 10th, 60 days, December the 10th, you must be giving your child